Hello, my name is William Varney, and today I'm here to talk to y'all about the miseducation of African American culture in public schools. Now, there's been a lot of focus on the rise in police brutality, but the true thing I feel is we really need to focus on the student who is going through the public education system of America. The biggest problem with that miseducation isn't those who are directly impacted by it, like the students are directly impacted by it, but the biggest impact is that the traditions of racism in teaching are still being taught, and that indirectly leads to a whole bunch of people's lives being slightly altered because of this learned thing in school. We begin learning about African Americans as slaves and not in the beginning as in their culture in Africa. As written by Kathy Renon, an NBC News writer, she wrote, "The history of African Americans begins on the African continent where diverse empires thrived for thousands of years and traded gold, ivory, and salt with people from other civilizations." I forgot that we even learned about Mali and Timbuktu and the salt and the gold until I read this article. And I believe it was middle school or elementary school when we talked about that. And that's a huge shock because, like, I've always thought we've had, like, from school I came from, Louisiana County High School, I thought we had a pretty good education. But looking back, I've realized there are some flaws in our American educational system. And this is one that can be addressed. And showcasing this furthermore, that even when we do teach about slavery in African culture, we still don't learn that much. Kevin Coakley, University of Texas professor, says, "When I am teaching about slavery and how brutal it was and sharing specific details, most of my students, people from Texas, indicate they did not learn specifics of slavery that I provided them in my course." That is a huge shock. Not until we don't even learn about the truths of slavery even until college. So how can we possibly have some sense of, like, what African American culture is if what we talk about isn't even real? What we talk about is even biased and Americanized and brought through the system, and it's just totally inadequate. Also, it's not even mandated by America to teach African American history, and that's a big problem that needs to be fixed. We also fail to acknowledge the past and fail to accept what we've done. Now, we can apologize and the government can apologize all we want, but until we accept it as a society that, hey, slavery was not a good thing anyway, and that we did it, that is when change will start to happen. And it was not up until 61 years ago that we started teaching that slavery was bad. In 1959, they were still teaching that slavery was a good thing and that it helped the country and ... But it's just such an awful, awful thing. And two legacies of slavery which need to be taught, since we're going to talk about slavery so much because it is such a bad thing. It does need to be taught, but taught properly. It needs to be talked about the social and economic inferiority it gave Black Americans and the cultural racism it instilled in whites. And those two legacies and ideologies were taken from a guy named James W. Lowen, who said that those were two legacies of slavery, and that is, like, such a true statement. They are two true legacies. And we can do this by creating a curriculum that humanizes it instead of just looking at Black people as slaves. We need whole school districts to get involved, and really just the government to mandate it and fund it. LeGarrette King, director of history education at University of Missouri, said, "Teachers have to stop thinking of their students as students and start thinking of them as citizens of the United States." And that is such a true thing. If we truly want equality for all, then we should teach our students the truth, because filling them with anxieties about grades and remembering information for big tests, that will not help them in life. But if we do show them how to properly treat people and how to see things from such perspectives, we can cause change through the school system and education, which is knowledge is power. That is a true statement right there. And I just want to challenge you all to think back on your schooling and just question, when did you start seeing color? When did you start thinking differently of people because of their skin tones? These issues are taught in schools, I believe, but improperly, and they are learned behaviors because of the improper teaching. The biggest way we can fight racism is by reform. The school system needs to change, and we are that generation to change it. I just hope that y'all can find yourselves helping choose to not have miseducation happen, and that you can help the inequalities faced by African American community day to day in your lives. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.